It's been a while since I last updated the Everything Known About RIOT MMO document, but I recently did a big update to it, added a lot of new information, and still we have not gotten official word from RIOT like they had potentially talked about doing in 2022. So it's looking like we're on the 2023 wait for official information, such as the name and things like that. But anyways, the document is updated. The link is in the description if you want to see that. I'm going to do a series of videos to go through the updates that I did, and I'm going to start with the Kanan interview recap for this video. Let's get into it. The Kanan interview started with him mentioning that a full 50 minutes was cut from the original. They talked about what MMOs were Greg's favorites, and he mentioned, of course, World of Warcraft for obvious reasons, Star Wars Galaxies for the promise of being whatever you want to be and for its sandbox elements, Ultima Online for being the first major game in the genre, and Destiny for its content cadence, high production value, and proving that not all MMOs have to be WoW clones. He was asked what kind of classes would be in the right MMO, and he said to look to League of Legends for ideas of what we might see in the MMO. In the document, I have now included a classes section and a link to the spreadsheet created by Spun with the list of all the classes and subclasses in League of Legends. He was asked what he likes in an MMO, and he said that combat is very important and needs to not feel floaty. He said he likes to see good class design and good dungeon experience is very important. He was asked about raids and raid group sizes, and he says he thinks an MMO needs a variety of raid group sizes to accommodate different playstyles. They talked about what separates the current top MMOs such as Final Fantasy XIV and WoW from the rest, and he said that these games have very large budgets and they serve a broad audience. They have many different game systems to explore and engage with to accommodate many different playstyles. They talked about why RIOT as a company has been so successful with their games. Basically, Greg said they take what works and smooth out the rough edges. Sub-models versus free-to-play models were discussed. Greg said that free-to-play will naturally have more players, and there is less friction when compared to a sub-model. In a free-to-play game, players are more able to come and go freely without having to resubscribe. Greg was also asked if a free-to-play model could work as a monetization method for an MMO, and he said they have done the math and determined that it can work. He also reiterated that they will not have pay-to-win in this MMO. They talked about horizontal and vertical progression, and Greg said a mix of both is nice and that you have to find the right balance. Horizontal progression is nice because it does not leave some players behind, but some vertical progression is also nice. They talked about item drop rates and everyone having the best gear. Greg said it is nice to have a few low drop rate items that only a few people end up getting and not everyone having the best gear. This gives the gear a lot more meaning and something to strive for. The question of adding new classes into an MMO was brought up. Greg said that new classes can be expensive to add to an MMO such as World of Warcraft, as you have to add new talent trees and new tier sets of gear. Some MMOs can make adding classes easier by not having talent trees and gear specific to a class. They also talked about locking classes to races and racial bonuses. Greg said he prefers no race locking and for there to be no racial bonuses so that your race choice is purely cosmetic. This is something that he has said in previous tweets as well. PvP of course came up, and Greg said that PvP balance is very difficult to get right in an MMO. He said separating PvP and PvE balancing is the way to go, which again is something he has mentioned on Twitter before. In terms of stuns and stun locks, he said that very long stun locks are not fun in PvP. Tab versus action combat systems were discussed. Basically, Greg said that there are strengths and weaknesses to both. He said action combat is hard to get right and has a long ways to go. He has played more Tab and therefore prefers that, but that is also because he thinks action combat in MMOs has still not matured enough and that it will eventually get there. He said action combat in MMOs is complicated because you have to worry about a lot of different mechanics, and action adds a lot more mechanics to that mix. He said ranged action combat is much easier to perfect than melee action combat is. In terms of slow or fast-paced combat, Greg said he prefers if players can demonstrate skill, which tends to be more available in faster-paced combat. And guys, that is it for this first video with a recap of the Kanan interview. I have a couple more videos planned where I'm going to go through a few more updates to things that we have potentially learned, mostly speculative things of course, and hopefully early next year. we get some official information and we can stop being so speculative. With that, guys, if you haven't subscribed, consider doing so, and I will see you guys in the next video.